Somebody help me, my car's dead. Please, I need help right now. Car trouble? Or you got a story to tell. Welcome to Detroit, where the streets bear scars of the past and tough folks still fight for a glimpse of hope. Tonight, a secret just rolled into town. Lila Bennett, a girl with a cherry-red Mustang and eyes full of mystery, just crashed into Hank Jackson's life, a mechanic who doesn't buy coincidences. Is her car really broken? Or is Lila playing a game far riskier than a busted engine? Hank's seen enough fake stories in Detroit to spot an act a mile away. But Lila's no ordinary customer. She showed up with a plan, one that could change everything. Who is she? Why this garage, out of all the places in town? And what makes a guy like Hank, who trusts no one, start to waver? In the next 10 minutes, you'll witness a story of trust, deception, and the power of second chances. Will Hank uncover Lila's secret? Will she tear down his shop or build something bigger? And most importantly, do you believe a lie can lead to the truth? Stick around to the end, because the final moment will glue you to the screen. Where are you watching from? Drop a comment now and let's dive into the story together. The freezing Detroit night blankets the city's gritty outskirts, where dusty roads whisper tales no one wants to hear. The neon sign of Hank's Auto Haven flickers faintly, like an old heart struggling to beat. The weathered sign, paint peeling, stands silently, a witness to countless broken cars and shattered dreams. Tonight, the quiet is shattered by tires crunching gravel, sharp as a scream in the dark. A cherry-red Mustang, gleaming like it just rolled off a showroom floor, screeches into the lot, its headlights slicing through the cracked pavement like they're exposing a hidden truth. The car door swings open. Lila Bennett steps out, her high heels clicking on the gravel, out of place in this rough scene. Her dark brown hair's a mess, like she just outran a storm. An expensive leather jacket clings to her slim frame, but her sharp green eyes tell a different story. Not panic, but a calculated calm. "Somebody help me!" she yells, her voice shaky, echoing in the cold air. "My car's dead. Please, I need help right now." Her plea lands like a stone in a still pond, stirring the silence of the garage. Inside, Hank Jackson stands in the shadows, lit only by a dim overhead bulb casting light on his rugged face. At 38, Hank's a tall, broad-shouldered man, a former auto engineer who came back to run this shop, his family's legacy. His oil-stained jacket hugs his frame like armor hiding scars from the past. He wipes his hands on a grimy rag, his eyes cold and piercing, like he can see through any lie. "Car trouble?" he says, his voice low and deliberate, each word a hammer striking truth. "Or you got a story to tell?" Lila hesitates, clutching her purse strap. She forces a weak smile, but Hank's gaze doesn't budge. He steps out of the shadows, his heavy boots crunching gravel, like he's challenging her entire world. "Pop the hood," he orders, his tone flat. Lila hurries back to the car, pulling the hood release, the metal creaking like a warning. Hank leans over the engine, the flickering neon casting sharp lines on his face. No smoke. No leaks. Not a single sign of trouble. He straightens, arms crossed, his stare cutting through Lila. "Mustang 2020, engine's brand new. You want me to believe it just died out here?" Lila swallows hard, her lips tightening. I don't know." It was running fine, then all of a sudden. She trails off, like she knows her story's falling apart. Hank tilts his head, his eyes like a blade slicing through her facade. "Detroit ain't the place for hide and seek, lady." "Who are you, and what do you want with my shop?" The air between them crackles with tension. Lila stands there, neon reflecting in her eyes, like she's at a crossroads. She takes a deep breath, her voice softening but steady. "I'm Lila, I was just passing through. I don't want trouble," but Hank's not buying it. He's seen too many people come and go, leaving empty promises and unpaid bills. "Passing through?" he repeats, his tone dripping sarcasm. "So you picked my shop, at midnight, with a car that's got nothing wrong?" The question hangs heavy, a challenge. Lila doesn't answer right away. Her gaze drifts to the shop, landing on a framed photo on the wall, an older man, probably Hank's dad, standing by a classic car, grinning with pride. Her eyes soften, like she's found a piece of the puzzle. "I heard about you," she says, her voice low but clear. "The mechanic who doesn't charge people who need help. I wanted to See if it was true. Hank lets out a dry laugh, not the warm kind. It's the laugh of a man who's been tested too many times. See if it's true? You drove 200 miles to test my goodwill. What is this? A Hollywood movie? He steps closer, his eyes locked on hers. Tell me the truth, Lila. I don't have time for games. Lila takes another breath, her eyes steady now. I'm not a bad person, Hank, she says, her voice sincere, but layered with something unspoken. Hank leans in, the neon highlighting his skepticism. You're not a good one, he shoots back, his voice cold as steel, unless you prove it. The air feels frozen. In the distance, a truck rumbles by, its engine roaring through the night. Lila stands there, like a lost traveler, while Hank's the lighthouse that won't bend. But in that moment, under the flickering neon, they both sense it. This story's just begun, and it's heading somewhere neither expected. Battery. The neon sign of Hank's auto haven still flickers, a faint pulse in Detroit's icy night. The Mustang's engine roar fades, leaving a heavy silence, broken only by the wind whistling through the gravel road and the faint smell of motor oil. Hank Jackson stands with arms crossed, his tall frame like a statue carved from grit and doubt. The shop's dim light spills across his face, sharpening his piercing eyes, like he can peel away every mask. His oil-stained jacket clings to his broad shoulders, hiding scars of a man who's fought to keep this shop from the bank's grip. You're not a good one, Hank says, his voice low and hard, unless you prove it. The words linger, sharp as a blade, daring Lila Bennett to step up or walk away. Lila stands by her cherry-red Mustang, her hands limp, her purse strap slipping off her shoulder. The neon glow catches her green eyes, revealing a flicker of hurt mixed with resolve. Her dark brown hair's a mess, her pricey leather jacket and dusty heels out of place in this gritty lot. She takes a deep breath, pulling courage from the cold air. You're right, she says, her voice soft but steady, no longer trembling. The car's not broken. I stopped here on purpose. The confession lands light but heavy, like a pebble rippling a still lake. Hank tilts his head, his eyes narrowing, not angry, but sharply curious. On purpose? He echoes, his tone mocking. You drove from where, Chicago? To stage a scene at my shop? For what? Lila steps forward, the neon highlighting her determined face. I heard about you, she says, choosing her words carefully. Last week you fixed a homeless guy's car for free. No cameras, no fame, just him telling the story at a late-night diner. I wanted to meet that man. Hank lets out a dry laugh, the kind that carries years of being tested. Meet me? He says, sarcasm thick. You drove 200 miles, faked a breakdown to see if I'm a saint. What is this, a game show? Lila doesn't flinch. She lifts her chin, her eyes locked on his, no longer hiding. Not a game, she says, her voice low and firm. I come from a world where everything's fake. Every smile, every handshake, it's all got a price. I'm tired of living in lies. I wanted to know if someone real still exists, and I thought, maybe that's you. Her words cut through the cold, hitting Hank like a gust of wind, making him pause. His eyes stay sharp, but a tiny flicker of curiosity betrays him. Not trust, but intrigue about the woman before him. Hank steps closer, the gap between them shrinking, the neon casting shadows on his face. You're curious about kindness? He asks, his voice low and edged. In Detroit, kindness ain't cheap. It comes with bills, sleepless nights, and people who leave without looking back. You think you can waltz in, put on a show, and I'll open up? Lila swallows, her hands clenching. I don't expect you to trust me, she says, her voice wavering but her eyes steady. I just want a chance to prove myself. The tension's thick, like a taut guitar string. A truck rumbles by in the distance, its growl stirring the night. Hank studies Lila, his gaze tracing her, like he's reading a book with scrambled pages. He sees sincerity in her eyes, but also secrets she's not sharing. A chance, he says, his voice cold. I don't hand those out for free. You want to stay, you work. No games, no drama. One more lie, and you're gone. Lila nods, her eyes lighting up like she's been given a golden ticket. Deal, she says, her voice firm. I'll prove it. Inside the shop, Hank's family photo watches silently, a quiet witness. The neon flickers, bathing the Mustang and the two figures in its glow, one running from her past, the other guarding his future. Hank doesn't know Lila's escaping a world of lies in Chicago. Lila doesn't know Hank's carrying the weight of a shop on the brink and a mother's loss. But under this light, an invisible thread forms, fragile, brittle, but brimming with potential to change everything. Check. Dawn breaks over Detroit's gray sky, the first rays slipping through heavy clouds, warming the gravel road to Hank's auto haven. The faded sign sways in the morning breeze, a quiet greeting. Inside, the smell of motor oil mixes with fresh coffee, creating a space both rugged and familiar. Hank Jackson's been up since before sunrise, his calloused hands sorting tools with a soldier's precision. At 38, Hank doesn't just fix cars, he patches the cracks in his own life, one bolt at a time. His oil-stained jacket hugs his tall frame, his eyes still sharp, but after last night, there's a new glint. Curiosity about Lila Bennett, the woman who dared enter his world with a lie and a promise to prove herself. The shop door creaks. Lila steps in, bringing a cool morning breeze. Gone are the leather jacket and heels. She's in an old flannel shirt, faded jeans, and dusty sneakers, like she's chosen to belong here. In her hand, a paper bag from a nearby diner, the smell of egg sandwiches wafting out. "Morning, Hank," she says, her voice light but confident, setting the bag on the counter. "Got breakfast. Heard you're a fan of Joe's Diner." Hank looks up, his eyes scanning her, from the tied-up hair to the unpolished nails. "You learn fast," he says, his voice low but less icy than last night. "But food doesn't buy you a spot here." Lila smiles, unfazed. "I'm not buying. I want to work." She points to the lot, where her Mustang's still parked. "I can start with cleaning tools or whatever you need." Hank crosses his arms, his gaze probing, weighing if she's worth the chance. "All right," he says finally, "start with the tool rack. Wipe every piece clean, and don't drop a wrench. They're pricier than you think." Lila nods, her eyes sparkling like she's won a prize. The morning hums with the clank of metal and the steady rhythm of work. Lila dives in, her soft hands now smudged with grease. She learns to grip a wrench, sort bolts, and even swaps tires on an old Chevy under Hank's curt guidance. "Not bad," he says, a hint of surprise in his voice as Lila tightens a bolt. She grins, cheeks flushed from effort. "3 summers gardening with my dad taught me not to mind dirt," she replies, her eyes twinkling. Hank lets out a short laugh, a real one, the first Lila's seen, cracking his invisible wall. By noon, Tessa Monroe walks in, her nurse scrubs smelling faintly of hospital antiseptic. Tessa, with curly hair tied high and sharp eyes, is Hank's best friend, his fierce protector. She glances at Lila, sweating by a car, then turns to Hank. "She's still here?" Tessa asks, her voice low but skeptical. "What's her deal, Hank? Nobody drives a Mustang to Detroit to play mechanic." Hank shrugs, his eyes flicking to Lila, who's smiling at an elderly customer. "She says she wants to prove herself," he says. "I'm giving her a shot. If she's lying, I'll know." Lila feels Tessa's stare, but doesn't shy away. She walks over, offering Tessa a cold water bottle. "Hi, I'm Lila," she says, her tone friendly. Tessa takes the bottle, her eyes still probing. "I don't trust people who show up with pretty stories," Tessa says bluntly. Lila nods, her gaze steady. "I get it. But I'm here to work, not to sell a story." Tessa huffs, but doesn't push. Hank watches, a flicker of respect in his eyes. As afternoon sun stretches through the shop's windows, Lila rests on a plastic chair, a wrench in hand, her eyes drifting to the family photo on the wall. Hank's dad, proud beside a vintage car. "You took over from your dad, right?" she asks, curious. Hank nods, his eyes softening. "He taught me everything." "This shop's all I got." Lila looks at him, her gaze gentle. "I grew up in Chicago, where everything's got a price. I hated it. Here, it feels real." Hank doesn't reply, but his eyes say he's listening. That day, Lila doesn't just clean tools or change tires. She starts blending into the shop's rhythm, laughing with customers, learning tool names, leaving her mark on Hank's world. But beneath the calm, a storm's brewing. Whispers spread in Detroit. Lila's no drifter. Who is she, and why is she here? Hank doesn't know yet, but his glance at Lila as she leaves at dusk carries a spark of hope and a trace of worry. Detroit's afternoon glows golden orange, like the city's clinging to warmth before the night's chill. Hank's auto haven buzzes with activity, the clank of wrenches mixing with smells of oil and stale coffee. The faded sign sways in the breeze, its auto haven letters dimming in the sunset. Inside, Lila Bennett, now at ease in the shop's rhythm, leans over an old Ford, her grease-stained hands tightening a bolt. Her worn flannel and tied-up hair make her part of this place, but her eyes hold a wary edge, like she senses a storm coming. Hank Jackson, a few feet away, checks invoices at the counter, his eyes occasionally flicking to Lila, not cold anymore, but cautious. The shop's his heart, and Lila, though trying hard, remains a question mark. The door creaks. Joe, a regular, steps in, his cap shading half his face. "Hank, word's out that girl ain't just passing through," he says, loud enough for Lila to hear. "Folks say she's a spy for some real estate firm, eyeing this block." "Your shop's the target." Hank pauses, his eyes narrowing, but he shrugs. "Rumors are like dust, Joe. They blow away." Joe grunts, glances at Lila, and leaves, leaving a heavy air. Lila keeps working, but her hands slow, like Joe's words are a weight on her chest. At noon, Tessa Monroe arrives, her nurse scrubs rumpled from a long shift. She carries a box of donuts from Joe's diner, but her sharp eyes lock on Lila. "Hank, you heard the talk?" Tessa asks, her voice low and pointed. "They say she's with a Chicago firm, planning to bulldoze this area for a mall. You really think she's genuine?" Hank wipes his hands, his eyes drifting to Lila, who's helping a single mom check her tires for free. "She's pulling her weight," he says calmly, "but I'm watching." Tessa crosses her arms, her gaze like an arrow. "You're too soft, Hank." She could be a snake in a pretty package. Lila senses Tessa's stare, but doesn't back down. She walks over, wiping sweat from her brow, and smiles. "Tessa, I fixed Clara's car." "Want to check it?" Tessa snorts, but inspects the car, finding no faults. Her eyes stay cold. "You're good at playing the part, Lila," Tessa says. "But I don't buy perfect smiles." Lila nods, her gaze unwavering. "I know. I'm here to work, not win everyone over." As dusk falls, the shop's neon buzzes to life. Lila, cleaning tools, spots a note slipped under the door. She picks it up, her hands trembling at the scrawled words. "Get out. Don't ruin this place." "We don't need your kind." No signature, just raw hostility. Lila freezes, her eyes darkening, like the note tore through her hard-earned confidence. She glances at Hank, working on a car in the corner, and stuffs the note in her jeans. "Everything okay?" Hank asks, his voice low, eyes probing. Lila forces a smile, but it doesn't reach her eyes. "All good," she says, her voice tight. "Just tired." She dives back into work, tightening a bolt like she's anchoring her resolve, but her glance at Hank's family photo carries a quiet sadness. The rumors are spreading, a smoldering fire ready to blaze. Hank doesn't know about the note, but he senses a shift in Lila, not weakness, but a silent strength. Tessa, watching from the door, softens slightly, though her doubts linger. Under the flickering neon, the shop's a battleground of trust and suspicion, and Lila, though standing tall, knows the real test is just beginning. That's it. Detroit's night falls heavy, the neon of Hank's auto haven flickering like a restless whisper. The gravel road silent, save for the cold wind carrying hints of oil and memories of a city that never rests. Outside, the sunset's gone, leaving a gray sky hinting at a storm. Inside, Hank Jackson stands at the counter, his calloused hands gripping a letter from First Detroit Bank, his eyes darkening like the clouds outside. Lila Bennett, in a grease-stained flannel, sorts tools in the corner, her eyes flickering with worry but holding steady. The shop, once a fragile haven for their budding trust, now hums with tension, like a guitar string about to snap. Hank tears open the letter, his eyes scanning the page, his face hardening. Your $20,000 shop debt has been paid, it reads, by an anonymous fund. He clenches the paper like it's an insult. For 2 years, that debt was his shadow, sleepless nights, and grueling days to keep the bank at bay. No one, not even Tessa, knew how close he came to giving up. Now, a stranger, or rather, Lila, quietly erased that burden. Hank looks up, his eyes locking on Lila, his voice low but sharp as a blade. You did this, didn't you? Lila stops wiping a wrench, her hands trembling. Did what? She asks, her voice soft, but her eyes betray the truth. Hank steps outside, the neon bathing his face, highlighting his restrained anger. Lila follows, her dusty sneakers crunching gravel, her steps like a racing heartbeat. Under the broken light, Hank holds up the letter. 20 grand. My shop's debt, wiped clean. You think money buys my trust? Lila takes a deep breath, her eyes wavering between hurt and resolve. I just wanted to help, Hank, she says, her voice shaking. You've poured your life into this shop. I couldn't watch you lose it. Hank lets out a bitter laugh, the kind that carries pain. Help? You call this help? You sneak behind my back, paying my debts like I'm your charity case. I'm not some broken thing for you to fix. Lila steps closer, the neon glinting in her teary eyes. It's not charity, she says, her voice breaking. I did it because you made me feel like I belong. In Chicago, everything I had came with strings. But you give without asking. I wanted to do the same, not with my money, but with gratitude. Hank shakes his head, his eyes cold as steel. Gratitude doesn't hide. If you respected me, you'd have been up front. Instead, you chose to lie, again. The air feels like ice. A truck's horn blares in the distance, stirring the night. Lila wipes a tear, her voice cracked but determined. I was scared you'd say no, scared the money would ruin what we were building. I was wrong, Hank, but I don't regret trying. Hank turns away, his eyes on the shop, where his dad's photo hangs, a reminder of trust's value. I don't need your money, he says, his voice low but firm. I need the truth. And you broke that. Lila stands frozen, the neon highlighting her pain. She opens her mouth, but no words come. Finally, she walks to her Mustang, opens the door, and slides in. The engine roars, but before driving off, she looks at Hank one last time, her eyes a wordless apology. Hank stands there, still clutching the letter, watching her taillights fade into the dark. The shop falls silent, save for the neon's hum, like a sad song about broken trust. Hank steps inside, his eyes lingering on the tools Lila cleaned, the chair she sat in. He feels a void, not just in the shop, but in himself. Tessa, if she were here, might say he was right to push Lila away. But deep down, Hank wonders if he was too harsh on someone who tried, even if she got it wrong. Under the neon, the shop still stands, but for the first time, it feels empty, and Hank knows this story's not over. Detroit's sky today is gray, heavy clouds carrying the city's sorrow. Hank's auto haven sits quietly on the gravel road, its neon flickering weakly in the daylight, like a tired heart. The smell of oil and stale coffee lingers, but the shop lacks its usual pulse. 5 days since Lila Bennett drove her cherry red Mustang away, leaving Hank Jackson with a bank letter and an ache he can't name. Hank stands at the counter, his calloused hands flipping through an invoice book, but his eyes are elsewhere, not seeing the numbers. At 38, he's no stranger to loss. His mom, deadbeat customers, a shop nearly bankrupt. But Lila, she's a fresh wound, sharp and puzzling. The shop's painfully quiet. The tool rack Lila polished is gathering dust. The plastic chair by the window, where she'd sit with Joe's diner sandwiches, stands empty, a reminder of the days her smile lit up the place. Hank grips his pen, trying to focus, but every clank of a wrench, every car passing outside makes him glance at the lot, where her Mustang once parked. He won't admit he's waiting, but his eyes betray him. The coffee in his paper cup tastes bitter, like it's soaked up his disappointment. The door creaks, and Tessa Monroe steps in, carrying a box of cinnamon rolls from Joe's, Hank's favorite. Her nurse scrubs are wrinkled, but her sharp eyes miss nothing. She sets the box down, crosses her arms, and watches Hank tighten a bolt harder than needed. You sent her packing, didn't you? Tessa asks, her voice low but direct. Hank doesn't look up, just shrugs. I told the truth, he says, his voice steady, but Tessa catches the waver. She sits across from him, her eyes piercing. The truth. Or were you scared you were starting to trust her? Lila messed up, Hank, but she was real. You sure you weren't too hard on her? Hank pauses, his eyes flicking to Tessa, then to his dad's photo on the wall. A proud smile by a classic car, a reminder of trust's worth. She paid off $20,000 without a word, he says, his voice low, laced with anger and hurt. That's not helping. That's control. Tessa tilts her head, her eyes softening. Maybe she just wanted to give back, but didn't know how. Not everyone grew up like you, Hank, knowing trust can't be bought. Her words ripple through him, pulling him into thought. That night, locking up, Hank sits alone in the small office, a desk lamp lighting an open invoice book. He finds a small note tucked inside, Lila's slanted handwriting. Thanks for showing me kindness is real. He grips the paper, his eyes blurring, not from dust, but from a feeling he won't name. Regret. He remembers Lila's grin when she nailed her first tire change, her patience with Clara, the way she looked at his dad's photo like she understood legacy's weight. Lila was wrong, but she tried, harder than anyone who's walked through that door. Hank stands, steps out to the lot, the neon flickering on his face. He stares down the gravel road where Lila drove off, wondering if she'll return. Tessa's right. He was scared to trust Lila because trust means getting hurt. But in this emptiness, Hank sees that pushing her away wasn't protecting trust. It was dodging it. Under the neon, the shop stands, but it's not enough to fill the void Lila left. He doesn't know that, somewhere in the dark, Lila's wrestling with herself, and their story, cracked as it is, isn't done. Chapter Yasor. Detroit's sky today is brighter, rare sunlight piercing gray clouds, warming the gravel road to Hank's auto haven. The neon's off in the daylight, but its presence lingers, a mark of drama-filled nights. The smell of oil and metal fills the shop, but it's no longer stifling, unlike 5 days ago when Lila Bennett left, leaving Hank Jackson with a note and a lingering void. Hank works on an old Chevy, his calloused hands wielding a wrench, his focus sharp, but his mind wandering. At 38, he's used to fixing cars, bills, his own cracks. But Lila, she's a puzzle he hasn't solved, and her absence makes the shop, despite its noise, feel hollow. The door creaks, but Hank doesn't look up right away. Light footsteps, not Tessa's or Joe's, make him pause. A sleek, black Bentley, absurdly out of place, sits in the lot, sunlight glinting off its curves like a statement. Lila Bennett steps in, no longer in greasy flannel or worn sneakers. She's in a sharp gray suit, her dark brown hair loose, heels clicking confidently on the concrete. But her green eyes, though poised, carry a familiar sadness. "Hey, Hank," she says, her voice low but clear, like someone ready to face anything. Hank straightens, his eyes scanning her, from the tailored suit to the Bentley outside. "Back to pay off more debts?" he asks, sarcasm thick, but curiosity flickers in his gaze. Lila steps closer, the gap narrowing, sunlight highlighting her face. "I'm not here to pay debts," she says, her voice steady. "I'm here to tell the truth, all of it." Hank crosses his arms, his eyes fixed on her, waiting for another lie. But Lila doesn't waver. She takes a deep breath, her gaze locked with his. "I'm Lila Bennett, daughter of Chicago's Bennett real estate empire. My family owns skyscrapers, resorts, billion-dollar deals, but me, I'm just a shadow raised to smile on cue and sign where they point." Hank stays still, his eyes narrowing, but he doesn't interrupt. Lila continues, her voice low but raw. 3 months ago, I ran. I couldn't stand the dinners with people who wanted my name, the engagements arranged for profit. I drove until I ran out of gas, and I landed in Detroit. I heard about you, the mechanic who helped a guy down on his luck for free. I wanted to know if that kind of goodness was real. And you showed me it was. Tears glint in her eyes, but she wipes them, her voice firm. I paid your shop's debt, not to buy trust. I did it because I believe in you, in what you stand for. Hank steps forward, his eyes still probing. You believed in me, but you hid from me, he says, his voice low. What did you think I'd do with the truth? Kick you out again? Lila gives a faint smile, her eyes soft. Maybe, but I'm done running. I want to stay. Not as Chicago's Lila Bennett, but as Lila, who learned to change tires from you. She pauses, then adds, her voice hopeful. I have an idea. A trade school, right here, for Detroit kids with no shot. I'll fund it, but you lead. Not for money, but because I see you changing a whole community. The air stills. A car rumbles by outside, its engine growling. Hank looks at Lila, his eyes no longer cold, but still wary. You want me to trust you again? He asks, his voice low. Lila nods, her gaze unwavering. Not right away. Let me prove it, this time, with the truth. Hank doesn't answer immediately. He glances at the lot where the Bentley and his rundown shop sit side by side, two worlds colliding. Inside, his dad's photo watches, reminding him trust, though hard, is worth a shot. Hank turns back, his eyes softening. You stay, no games, he says, his voice firm. And no money paving the way. Lila smiles, truly radiant for the first time. I promise, she says. Under the sunlight streaming through the window, the shop glows, like a new chapter's begun. Not easy, but ripe with potential to mend old cracks. Morning sun filters through the dusty windows of Hank's Auto Haven, spilling across the oil-stained concrete, carrying a promise of new beginnings. Detroit, with its gravel roads and industrial ghosts, feels gentler today. The smell of oil blends with fresh coffee, crafting a space both raw and welcoming. Hank Jackson works on an old Dodge, his calloused hands gripping a wrench, his eyes focused but holding a rare spark. Not doubt, but a budding trust. Lila Bennett stands by the tool rack, sorting bolts with care, determined to belong. The shop, once a battlefield of suspicion, is now where two people, once worlds apart, build something greater than themselves. Hank agreed to work together, but it wasn't easy. My name's on the sign, not yours, he said that day, his voice firm, eyes locked on Lila to ensure no tricks. Lila nodded, her eyes bright with respect. No name of mine, she replied, certain. This is your shop, Hank. From there, they started as allies, not partners, learning to trust. Lila shed the Chicago heiress, returning to jeans, shirts, and greasy hands, learning to fix engines, change brakes, staying late to finish a customer's car. Hank watched, his wariness fading, replaced by quiet respect. You're getting good, he said one afternoon, as Lila nailed a clutch repair. Lila grinned, cheeks flushed with pride. Got a great teacher, she replied, her eyes shining. Tessa Monroe, still skeptical, started dropping by more. She brought coffee, donuts from Joe's, and pointed questions. She's really sticking around, huh? Tessa asked Hank one morning, her eyes on Lila, teaching a customer to check oil. Hank shrugged, his gaze softer. She's working hard. I'm giving her a chance. Tessa huffed, but her eyes warmed. She walked to Lila, handing her a coffee. Don't let Hank down, Tessa said, her voice low but no longer hostile. Lila smiled, nodding. I won't, she said, and for the first time Tessa didn't argue. The trade school idea took shape. Hank and Lila spent late nights in the shop's tiny office, sketching plans for a space to teach Detroit's forgotten kids, not just car repair, but skills for life. Lila tapped funding sources, keeping her promise. Her name stayed out of it. Hank led, picking equipment, connecting with the community. One afternoon, Jamal, a 16-year-old dropout, walked in, eyes shy. Heard you teach car stuff for free? He asked. Hank handed him a manual and a wrench. Start here, he said. Lila smiled from a distance, her eyes glowing with hope. One evening, under the flickering neon, Lila found a note on Hank's desk, his bold handwriting. If you stay 6 months, I'll tell you what I've hidden since day one. Her heart raced as she glanced at Hank, working on an engine. He didn't look up, but a faint smirk hinted he knew she'd read it. Lila smiled, tucking the note in her pocket, warmed by an unspoken promise. The community took notice. Joe, Clara, even those who doubted Lila, started coming by, bringing coffee or pastries, a quiet truce. Tessa, still checking Lila's every move, began calling her by name. The shop wasn't just fixing engines, it was a spark, igniting hope in a corner of Detroit. Under the neon, Hank and Lila, once strangers, stood side by side, building not just a school, but trust. One bolt, one day at a time. Golden sunlight bathes Detroit, a rare gift for a city etched with scars. Hank's Auto Haven is no longer just a small repair shop on a gravel road. It's a beacon of hope, with a fresh white sign. Hank's Haven, Trade School Community Hub. The old neon still flickers, but now it blends with laughter, chatter, and the smell of fresh rolls from Joe's diner. The lot's packed, not with customers, but neighbors, curious teens, and folks once skeptical, now holding coffee cups, their eyes bright with new trust. Under the sun, the hub opens, not with banners or fireworks, but with the heart of a community learning to heal. Hank Jackson stands amid the crowd, his navy shirt neat, but hands still marked by work. At 38, he never dreamed his shop would become more, a place not just fixing engines, but mending broken dreams. Lila Bennett stands nearby in a simple tee, her brown hair tied high, her green eyes shining with pride. She's no longer the mysterious Chicago girl, but part of Detroit, the shop, this journey. Tessa Monroe, in her nurse scrubs, stands by Lila, her sharp eyes now softer, like she's accepted Lila not just as a co-worker, but family. A row of folding chairs holds Jamal, the 16-year-old dropout, and 7 other young trainees, each in a navy jacket with trainee stitched on. Jamal clutches a repair manual, his eyes alive like never before. Lila steps forward, mic in hand, sunlight highlighting her sincerity. "I came to Detroit with a lie," she says, her voice trembling but clear. "I faked a car breakdown to meet Hank, to find something real. But I found more. A community, a purpose, and people who don't give up. This hub isn't about fixing cars. It's about fixing how we see each other, telling kids like Jamal they belong. They're worth something." The crowd quiets, then claps, not loud, but deep, a shared agreement. Hank steps up, his eyes sweeping the crowd. Joe, Clara, those who doubted Lila, now smiling. He clears his throat. No notes, just 5 words, his voice low and strong. "We don't fix cars. We fix futures." The words hit like a hammer, shattering doubt. The crowd claps, louder now. Tessa claps hardest, her eyes shining, then surprises Lila with a quick hug. A real one, erasing old walls. Lila smiles, tears glinting, but she stands tall, her eyes finding Hank, like saying, "We did it." After the speeches, the hub opens. Trainees lead tours. A small classroom with a whiteboard, a repair bay with new tools, a bookshelf packed with manuals. Clara brings rolls, Joe donates an old but solid wrench set. Jamal, newfound confidence shining, shows a kid how to check oil, his eyes bright with purpose. Hank stands in the lot, sunlight warming his rare smile. Lila joins him, her eyes soft. "We did it," she says, her voice low. Hank nods, his gaze locked on her. "Not done yet," he replies, his voice warm, carrying an unspoken vow. Under Detroit's sun, Hank's Haven isn't just a building. It's proof that trust, once broken, can be rebuilt, not with money, but sweat, honesty, and people daring to give second chances. The old shop, with its flickering neon, is now a lighthouse for a community finding its way. Chapter 2. Detroit's night falls gently, like a warm embrace from a city once scarred. The neon of Hank's Auto Haven flickers, no longer just a shop's sign, but a flame of hope lighting a community. The gravel road's quiet, save for a soft breeze carrying oil and faint coffee from Joe's diner. Inside Hank's Haven, lights glow, where Jamal, the 16-year-old dropout, carefully wipes a wrench, his eyes bright with new pride. Hank Jackson and Lila Bennett stand in the lot, neon bathing their faces, where genuine smiles replace old doubts. Tessa Monroe, from the shop door, glances at them with a faint smile, like she knew this miracle was coming. Looking back, it's hard to believe it started with a lie. A cherry-red Mustang faked to be broken, a girl fleeing Chicago, and a mechanic who scoffed at fate. Hank, with a heart walled off by pain, learned to open up, not just to Lila, but to a whole community. Lila, trapped in a world of fake smiles, found truth. not in wealth or power, but in sweat, patience, and days beside Hank. Hank's Haven isn't just a trade school, it's proof that trust, fragile as it is, can build greatness when we dare to give chances. Hank stands under the neon, his eyes on the hub, where trainees laugh, where Clara left roles, Joe gave tools. "You were right," he says to Lila, his voice warm. "It's not money that made this, it's people." Lila smiles, her eyes shining. "And you, Hank, you kept the fire burning." They don't say more, but their eyes, under the neon, hold a promise to keep building, not just a hub, but dreams. This story teaches that trust doesn't come from fancy words or pricey gifts. It's built through actions, hard work, honest apologies, and choosing to stay when it's tough. Hank and Lila gave each other a second chance, and in doing so, gave Detroit a shot to heal. You can bring this to your life. Think, who in your world deserves another chance? Who needs you to believe in them, like Hank did for Lila? Or maybe you need to trust yourself, to move past mistakes and rebuild. Under Hank's Auto Haven's neon, Hank and Lila's story isn't just personal. It's a reminder that every community, every bond starts with a small seed, trust. Where will you plant yours? Where are you watching this from? A big city, a small town, a quiet room? Drop a comment below, share your trust story. If you believe in second chances, hit like, share this with someone who needs to hear it. Together, we can light neon sparks, not just in Detroit, but anywhere. Stick with us, because stories like this never end. Under the neon, Hank, Lila, and a community are writing new chapters, and you can too. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next story.